to Black Crow Gaming. We're here tonight with Korben, one of our fellow crows. He's relatively new to the crows, but he's joining us tonight, and we're going to be talking about the Space Marines Codex. We're going to do a bit of a review. I've asked Korben to join us tonight because he is an avid Marine fanboy, more specifically a Templar fanboy. But you know, the lines are blurred nowadays, and you can be whatever you like. Very inclusive of Games Workshop, which is fantastic. So we're gonna open the floor for Korben, and we're gonna get started straight looking into this Space Marine review. So first question, Korben, is it any good? Go on, let's get it out there.
Yeah, I would say it's quite good. I think we can see from the Tyranid Codex as well coming out that they're definitely trying to do internal balance within these codexes, which is good to see. I think it's an important thing to do, and I think they've done it quite well with this book. There are definitely some detachments that miss, and there are definitely some very strong ones. But I think the design aspect of being able to take whatever you want and not being limited is a very good start, and I think there's definitely play with a lot of these. So as a Black Templar player, I currently have access to I think 8 different detachments I can use. So I've got a lot of options, and I'm sure other people, especially if they've got specific supplements as well, they've got a lot of options. So no, yeah, I think it's a very good book.
So you say you got like 8 different detachments. So anybody nowadays can pick up a Space Marine. You can make it whatever you like, and you're able to use those chapters, which is fantastic to the hobbyists out there because it doesn't really matter what chapter you pick. You can just be whatever you like. So let's get into it. 8 different detachments. Tell us about those detachments.
So you're going to have your standard Gladius task force, which is the same from the Index.
Right.
Nothing really has changed with that in the new Codex. And then obviously the Righteous Crusaders, which is the Black Templar specific one, hasn't changed at all because that's not in this Codex
So
either.
for those that don't know, can you just tell us what the Gladius Task Force is?
Yeah, so the Gladius is the generic Space Marine one from the Index. That's the where you get your doctrines. So you get your Assault Doctrine, you get your Tactical Doctrine, and you get your Devastator Doctrine. And I think as well, if you've been playing against Gladius, you'll probably be familiar with certain enhancements like Bolter Discipline, now called Fire Discipline, and all of the different stratagems, like being able to put stuff into doctrines. It's pretty much your balanced, good at everything sort of detachment. So especially for new players, it's fantastic because it just gives them loads of options.
So are we rating
Um,
that like a 5 out of 10, or are we going a bit higher?
I, I think for that one, it's a bit higher. I think you've got to go 7 or 8 for the Gladius.
7 or 8. So Gladius is still strong. So that one that
So
if you're already a 40k player already know, that's still a goer.
100%, yeah, I think it's still very good. It's very good at doing everything, and it's then also still really good at a lot of different things. Like I'm sure people will know about the aggressor combo, running the bolter aggressors, having the biologists for the lethal hits, and then putting fire discipline on them to get the critical hits on fives and give them sustained hits, and they pretty much can kill anything in the game with oaths. Especially now, with obviously will affect all the detachments we speak about. The oath change now no longer rerolling wounds. Uh, Obviously, a lot of the aggressor weapons are twin linked, so they can still benefit from those reroll wounds as well.
And am I right in saying you're able to put these aggressors in well, one of the party buses, right? That's one of the strats. So you put them in
Yeah,
the back of a vehicle that's got fire in deck, and you're basically wheeling around these aggressor pattern
yeah,
suits, just like whirling these bolters around over the top.
yeah. So yeah, I think the standard one is I think the only transport there's only 2 transports that can actually fit the aggressors because it's a 6-man squad and a character, and they all take up 2 spaces each. I think the Redeemer and the Crusader Land Raiders are the only 2 that you can fit in them. That in, but I think a lot of people run the Redeemer because obviously the Overwatch threat and those sorts of things. But yeah, no, I think that's still a really strong combo, and I don't see considering the lack of change that's happened with it. I think it's definitely gone down in power level, as has all Space Marines because of the Oath change.
Okay.
But but I think it's still a very out of the context of all the detachments is definitely one of the stronger ones.
That's fair enough. So next you mentioned the Black Templar one. You called it
Yeah,
Black Templar, and that doesn't really exist nowadays, does it? But
no.
what's that one like?
So I think a lot of people have realised that it's more of a durability detachment, if you will. So the Black Templars detachment is every Space Marine detachment. You'll get the Oath rule.
Right.
The detachment rule that we then get for being in the Roaches Crusaders is we get to select a vow at the start of the game. We can select lethal hits in melee, sustained hits in melee, precision on sixes in melee, or you can have a 5-up leadership and a 6-up feel no pain army wide, which doesn't just affect specific units, it affects everything over to your, I think people will be aware, Dreadnoughts, Redemptors with a 2-up save, -1 damage, then also get a 6-up feel no pain as well. They become very durable.
Wow, that definitely sounds quite tasty. So if we're going to rate that one from 1 to 10, where are we going to put that one on your rating scale?
I think you probably have to put it a little bit lower than Gladius because it's not as all coming and probably not as easy to use. I've been liking it a lot. That's what I've been mainly using for the past probably month or so now. Is what I've been mainly running. There's also an enhancement that allows you to get a unit, a 5-up feel no pain, and I've been sticking that on a Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminator squad, so they've all got 4 wounds each.
Very durable.
Yeah.
5-up feel no pain. Very tasty. You gotta like that. So that's your top take then at the minute.
Yeah, for the Black Templars detachment, I think if you're taking it, you take that combo. Otherwise, I think you're probably best going elsewhere. If you're looking for the competitive side of it, I think yeah, if you're going for durability, you can't really go wrong with the Black Templars detachment.
Nice. Okay, so the next attachment we're going to go on to. Tell us about that. Give us the name and what you think about it.
Yeah, so if we go off of, if I can remember that, I've got the Codex next to me. We've
Oh, you're
got
prepared.
the Anvil Siege Force,
The Anvil
which
Siege
is
Force.
your totally not a Imperial Fist attachment.
So the totally not Imperial Fist. I bet when they do these detachments, haven't they literally got the colours of like the Imperial Fist or the Iron Hand?
You've got images at the top.
Why not just
show,
call it? Why not just be like
Yeah.
Okay. It's fine. It's inclusivity. We love it. So
100%.
tell us about it.
I think the easiest way to describe it is it's going to be your indirect detachment. To be honest, I think there's not really. Basically, you get all your weapons gain heavy, so +1 to hit when you stand still. And if they already have heavy and stay still, they get +1 to wound instead. I think the one key point to put into this is there is no way to have a unit move and then count as remaining stationary, which I thought would be the case, like a stratagem. Unfortunately, that's something you can't do. So that's where you're really relying on the indirect, with movement being such an important part of obviously 40k. Having to get your bonuses from standing still, that's when you want your indirect. So to be honest, even though I'm sure we're all aware, rightly so, the Desolators have had their rightful nerf, I still think you probably take 2 5-mana Desolators in this, because the Desolators still ignore indirect. They then go to hitting on 2s. And there are strats to make it that if you there's a stratagem, I can't remember the name of it, but it's 1 CP to get sustained hits 1, and if you stay still, which you're most likely going to do with the Desolators, you get criticals on 5s again. So you're basically just giving them Belt of Discipline for a CP instead. Not to mention you're getting them to hit better in indirect because they've now got heavy weapons, and not to mention their super crack weapons are also heavy. So potentially, if you can stand still and get shots off with them, you can then get those las cannon shots at +1 to wound as well. Not to mention, I think whirlwinds are going to really enjoy this as well. So I think it's a lot of indirect and then probably Gravis focused, because a lot of your enhancements are for Gravis models as well, which does feel quite Imperial Fist like.
So I've got a problem with this. So you straight away you've said like their benefit is from staying still. The whole 40k now is in a you need to move, you need to be moving on to objectives, you need to be scoring points. I feel
Mhm.
like having 2, 3, 4 units that are going to get benefit from an army-wide detachment, and those only being those few units, I feel like you're not
Mhm.
really getting value out of this particular detachment. I mean, unless you create a Space Marine gun line,
Mhm.
maybe, but are you really playing Space Marines if you're just basically playing
Yeah.
as a gun line? It doesn't. I don't feel like this one rates
No,
particularly
it's not.
high.
It's one of the weaker ones for sure, I would say. There are some handy little things you can do with it. For example, there's a one CP strat that lets you double your OC with all models in a unit. So if you're taking, I would say, a good unit to use with some of the enhancements with Gravis is either taking the aggressors or specifically the heavy intercessors, which are already OC2, for a CP to make them OC4 each is quite hilarious. But I think you're just teching into little things at that point, and you're probably best going elsewhere. But
I mean,
yeah,
I've got a personal favourite detachment that's come from this one. We'll get onto that, I'm sure, shortly,
yeah.
because but that just fits my play style.
hmm
So 1 to 10, what are we ranking this one?
I think if you're going to go, I think this is one that's probably below average. I don't think you'll see it competitively. I think if you're going to have some narrative games and have some fun, you might see it. So I think you're probably looking at probably if you're going on a scale of 10, probably a 4 out of 10
4. I was
for
thinking
this
4.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds about right. So
Yeah.
we'll move on. What's the next one?
So the next one, I believe, is the Iron Storm detachment, which is the Iron Hands one.
Now you've spoken about this detachment in some of the crow
Yeah,
chat we've had, and you seemed quite excited about this one. So tell us a little bit about it. Tell us its main points and give us the
yeah.
lowdown.
So I think it links quite heavily with what I mentioned before as well, with me running my durability list with a lot of dreadnoughts. This one removes the durability and just says, "I'm just going to hit you really hard." So the detachment rule is you can either re-roll a hit, a wound, or a damage. There's going to be specific units that really like that. For example, Gladiator Lancers, they already re-roll a hit, wound, and damage to then have an awe as well. Means you're pretty much always going to put through two saves on someone at AP4, potentially with two damage roll re-rolls as well. It's a lot of consistent damage from those. You've got repulsor executioners that also have two-shot weapons, which like that is quite similar to how people want to use the Eldar reroll hit and wound. Bright Lancers are really good for using that. A lot of them have two Bright Lancers on their profile, so they can get the rerolls and get the efficiency out of it. It's the similar process. When you then get into some of the enhancements, you probably, I would say, you instantly, when you go to enhancements, you just set your list at 1915 and you just say 85 points is getting spent on detachments. I need to figure out what characters are going on. The three I would say is you've got a 40.1, which is the target web. It gets everything within 6 inches. A vehicle gets lethal hits. Thinking about how many shots people can put down and us not having the rerolls for oath anymore to wound. Having stuff just auto wound is very useful, and we still have the access to rerolling hits. There's another enhancement that within 6 you can choose a damage to be changed to 0, which is again very good. If people are trying to deal with your dreadnoughts, especially with, we mentioned before, if someone's putting, tower are coming up in the rankings, if they're putting rail guns through, or if you're facing Eldar with the Bright Lancers and all those sorts of things. And then there's the next one, which basically gives your all your vehicles within 6 in an aura doctrines. They can fall back and advance and shoot, which is
Hideous.
really good.
Yeah, hideous.
Yeah,
Very good. Although, how big's the aura? 6 inches, I assume.
they're all 6 inches. Yeah. So yeah, all of them are 6 inches, and obviously the change of damage is not an aura because it's only once per turn. You can do that once per turn. It's still really good for
So
an enhancement
this
like that.
Iron Hand sounds very much like it's geared up to Castle, and that's
Yeah.
for those who might watch this and don't know what I mean by Castle. But essentially, in ninth edition, you could get one particular character that was kind of like your buff character who had aura, and you
hmm
could castle or put units around that so that they all gained the benefits,
Yeah.
making this particular castle particularly effective at doing one thing. I know this because I used to do it with my Space Marines and Iron Hands. I'd be given stuff like rerolls, +1s to hit or wound, and it was, it was very, very effective. So it seems that Space Marines, this particular detachment, is focusing on this castling where you're buffing your dreadnoughts, you're buffing these units to try and making them more effective. And I personally feel like dreadnoughts at the beginning of the indexes weren't particularly very good. So
No.
it's great to see that this codex has come and is actually giving you a detachment where if you want to play loads of dreadnoughts, this is your detachment. Take your 3 times brutalis, take your 3 times normal ones. Oh, we've got some comments in the chat. We've got Dats and Des, and he's saying people still do that with Morty, and there's 3 PBCs, which I don't actually know what that means because I am not a Death Guard player. Got Datsun, tell us what that means. And then we've got Matty Dual, who said that his favourite detachment's the Firestorm and Speed detachment. So we'll be getting onto those shortly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're rating this one. So what is your rating? 1 to 10. Where's this one standing?
I think competitively, this is probably your best one. I think especially, I think this is the best one.
Do you? Okay, so what, you're rating it a 9?
I would say if we go Gladius as a 7, I would say this one's probably an 8. I don't think any of the Codex's elite detachment should be a 9 on no scale. I think an 8 is probably fair for this Iron Storm.
This is your top end. Okay.
I think so, yeah.
So what's the next detachment?
So the next one is the Firestorm, the Salamanders one.
The Salamanders, yeah, which is totally not the Salamanders. But anyway, tell us about it.
So I think the detachment rule is where you get the money from this. Every single weapon in your army gains assault. It's such a good rule this edition. Advancing and doing actions, just to being able to basically say your entire army has Devastator Doctrine the entire game.
That's actually amazing because you know Space Marines have got a lot of cheap units, a lot of throwaway trade units. Being able to move, then advance, then just do your assault, fantastic. Becomes very fast.
It's a great rule. Yeah, no, 100%. It's a fantastic rule, especially obviously with Salamanders. It makes sense because it means your flamer weapons and obviously can get in range, which obviously will come up in the stratagems, mainly the flamers and things of that. But you also get, if you're within 12 inches, you get +1 strength to your ranged weapon as well. Obviously, flamers, melters, those sorts of things. Very thematic, obviously, to the Salamanders. They obviously taking your multi-mellers to strength 10 means you're going up a threshold to be wounding those dreadnoughts on 4s, or a lot of Eldar vehicles. The toughness 9 transports and things like that. You're wounding them then on 3s.
Yeah, you
don't get a lot more consistency.
Wounding a rhino on something that's slightly better.
Yeah.
Because melters have felt rather underwhelming. They seem like they're more better at just killing like heavy infantry now rather than even killing vehicles. And if we were going narratively, melters, it's in the name, right? You melt stuff. So you should be able to melt giant holes in the side of vehicles. The indexes came out, and this has just kind of not been the case. So it sounds like the Salamanders, but not Salamanders. They're kind of leaning into that narrative of what we like about them. So going on from them, how do you feel about them? If you were going to write a list and you were going to look at your Salamanders, what would you be leaning into? Your flamer aggressors, or would you be going for the flamer aggressors? Yeah.
I think flamer aggressors, and I think you put a redeemer in there. I think if we go into just to speak about some of the stratagems, you want flamers, you want just anything that's valuable with assault, even dreadnoughts, having dreadnoughts just be able to advance and shoot, potentially getting within 12 inches and taking that plasma overcharge up to strength 10 is incredible with the plasma.
Wow.
Wounding Terminators on 2s is you don't need O3 rolls when you can win stuff on 2s like that.
So tell us about these stratagems, because when you go into tournaments nowadays, there's always going to be a core, quite a large core of Marine players there. It's one of the most
Hmm.
accessible armies out there. It's going to have a new book, so there's going to be a lot of Marine players. So when you're going to tournaments, it's inevitable you're going to see a lot of Marine players. So tell us about these stratagems, because obviously, I mean, we've got tournaments coming up. This is good. This is all good for all of us.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of obviously is to mention Armor of Contempt is in every single detachment. It's a great 1 CP strat.
So is
Can't go
that
wrong with it.
that's kind of like their bog standard. They all get armor of contempt.
100%. Yeah, every single detachment gets Armor of Contempt. So at least every detachment has at least one good stratagem because Armor of Contempt is very good. I
So
use it all the time.
so for those who don't know, armor of contempt is -1 AP,
AP, yeah,
and
can be used in the shooting phase and the fight phase. So obviously, like you can't do it like Overwatch, but
is
yeah,
it still
it's
is it
still
1 CP?
1 CP. Yeah,
1 CP.
battle
That sounds.
tactic as well, which is important to note that there's a lot of battle tactics. I
So you
think
get your free
each detachment
strats.
gets 3 minimum battle tactics out
What
of the 6 stratagems.
so battle tactic stratagems that can be used for a free strat from like characters and so on.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
strong. Very strong.
Yeah. I think the other ones that are probably quite good. You've got Crucible of Battle, which is pretty similar to what it has been in previous editions. It unfortunately there's now a range limit on it, so you need to be within 6 inches, and you get +1 to wound for a CP. Still a very good if you can get within the 6 inches. With the assault, it's a lot more easier. But then having +1 strength on your weapons, and then +1 to wound, you could potentially get flamers wounding things that are toughness 5 on threes, potentially even being able to get wounding a lot of things on twos as well. Is really strong. I think also if you're looking at flamers, you've got one of the 2 CP strats is given a torrent weapon dev wounds. That's especially when aggressors flamers are twin linked, you can then fish for those sorts of things.
So
Um,
Matty Dewell,
yeah,
actually, he's just turned around and said he can't wait to use Firestorm attachment with Calgar and aggressors.
yeah, I'm not surprised. Wrong.
Sounds very nice. So
I
where
think yeah,
where are we rating this one then?
I think this one's probably. I would say if you exclude like I think you've got, at least personally for me, you've got one which is the Iron Storm, and then you've got like 3 detachments like underneath it. And I think this is one of another ones. I think you could rate this a 7 or a 6, and you'd be quite happy. I think this one's a very strong one.
Is it? Do you think
I
it'll
think
hold up competitively? Like, do you think
I
this is?
think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think some of the shenanigans you can do. There's a lot of. There's strangely enough, it feels a little bit weird, but there's a lot of, if it's for a Space Marine player, at least myself, I don't really run transports all the time or a lot of them. There's a lot. There's actually quite a few stratagems in the SAT or the Firestorm that actually relates to, for example, if you shoot at my transport, I can get out and shoot you back, stuff like that, which is quite funny. But it's not something that, as a Space Marine player, I think I need Land Raiders, Impulses, I need transports in my list. It's not always something I think about, and I think it's something that will be very, very fun to. I think this especially will be an interesting one to list build for.
Right. Okay. So we're going to move on
Hmm.
onto the next attachment. I think we're what 4-3 now. So right, what's this next one?
Yeah. So the next one is going to be your Totally Night Scars. I believe it's called the Storm Lance
Now
attachment.
this is the one that I low key think is the best one. I know you disagree with me, but I rate this.
Yeah, it's a good rule. I think the where it lacks is, to be honest, I think just get it straight. If you're playing Raven Wing or you're playing Space Wolves, I think you're slamming this detachment and you're having a great time. If you're not playing those detachments, I don't think it's worth it. Myself, I think there's other options. I think honestly, always being able to advance in charge is obviously always good. Obviously, I believe it's advance full back in charge. That is just the detachment rule. The only issue is if you're not playing those detachments, the the enhancements, 3 of them are limited to mounted units. The only mounted character now, as things have been legend, is the chaplain on bike. So if you want to use all the enhancements, you have to put 3 of them in the list to just use them. And then a lot of the stratagems relate to having bonuses from mounted. And as good as Outriders are, I wouldn't build a list around Outriders. But if you're taking things like Space Wolves, having Thundercab, I think one of the standout stratagems is Ride Fast. Ride Fast. It's -1 to hit, -1 to wound on a mounted unit, which is, again, a battle tactic. So if you've got some Thundercab with some Wolf Lords in there, getting some free strats, making 2 Thundercab units, -1 to hit, -1 to wound is real strong.
Wow. So
Yeah.
we last week had Corderon, and he, as Simon called it, he is a massive Space Wolf fanboy, and he was talking about this,
Mm-hmm.
and he's very excited. I really like
Yeah.
this. I think move, advance, charge, and being able to fall back and charge. I think that's, for me, that I like playing that style because I like the speed that comes with it.
Yeah.
I know you're limited on your stratagems as to what
Mm-hmm.
you can do. However, as an army rule, you're so rapid because
Yeah.
like it's a 24-inch threat range on just a normal walk-in dude. Imagine those, you've got all of these dreadnoughts that can, like, what, the brutality can move eight.
Yeah. All the redundant chassis move 8. Yeah.
So they've got a 26-inch threat range. You've got all the jump
Mm-hmm.
pack intercessors. What, they 12 inches?
Yeah. 12 inches. Yeah.
So
There is also a strat that lets you, for 1 CP, move a unit minimum 6-inch advance as well. 9 if you're a mounted unit. That's 2 CP, I believe.
that's is that a battle tactic or was that an epic deed?
I would have to double check that. I can get that up in the book, whether it's a battle tactic or not, because that's probably important to know whether it is or not. But I think that's one of the main ones you're probably looking for there. There's another one called Windswift Evasion. If you get within 9 inches, you can just move a flat 6 inches away from him for 1 CP. Again, hilariously strong. I mean, we're speaking about things like squad tactics in Gladius. Being able to move T6 inches was still annoying enough. Being able to just do it for a flat 6 is really good. The full throttle stratagem is a walk in or a battle tactic.
Wow. So you can just disappear. See, I think it's strong. I appreciate that you are limited to your mounted units, but I think if you're a Space Wolf player,
100%.
You could build one hell of a list. Like, it would be ridiculous to play against because it'd be so fast. I'm really intrigued, like, what the meta Mondays and so what we're going to see. I think it's going to be not this weekend, but I think in a couple weekends time, where people are really starting to get their hands on the book and kind of have a look at what the crack is. I think we're going to see Space Marines kind of go up because they've been sitting at like the 40 something odd % mostly, unless you're like Templars or you're playing like some random one, but they've been sitting quite lowly. So I think we're going to see them hike up. But then statistics are funny because there's also a lot of players who might not be that great and they might bring the score down who play. So I think we are going to see Marines do well. So I rate this one really highly, but Korben, this is about what you think. So what's your rating on this one? Is this a 7?
I would say, depending on what you're running, if you're running it as just normal Marines, you're probably looking at a 5. If you're running a Raven Wing or Space Wolves variant of this, I think this is, again, one of the strong ones, a 7. I think this rule alone that can make just units that you pretty much can't use half the stratagems if you're taking normal Marines on this, unless you're taking Outriders, which you're probably not going to be wanting to use the stratagems on anyway. I think that the rule itself is good enough. The enhancements aren't the best. But I think just being able to advance and fall back in charge is so valuable to just have it. Because like we mentioned before when we were speaking about the Imperial Fist one, movement is so important in this game, and this allows you to be so flexible. It's the same with the Firestorm as well, with the Assault. I think movement's so key. I think you can at least have it, even if it's not that effective, a 5. And then if you've got units that benefit from these strats really well, and actually can use the enhancements like Space Wolves or Raven Wing, then it's going to be hard to deal with.
you just have to think about like how effective the custodes are with that move, advance, and charge from the Blade
Yeah.
Champion. Like how devastating that's been. I mean, you've played against that. You've seen exactly the sort of mess that can put people in. I mean, you can tie people up quick. Like people will, the next thing you know, you're in their face. You're pushing their key unit back and tied them in combat. And that's 2 turns. They could potentially, they might not even get out of combat. They might just get killed straight flat. And I think this one has a lot of play, especially if it's in the right general's hand. You know,
Yeah.
I think certain players will look at this one and they will really like this one. This isn't an everybody one, but this certain people will do well, I think. So let's.
Yeah, I think.
Go on, no, carry on.
No, I was going to say, I think you're absolutely right. I think, yeah, for those ones, if you can find the way to use this detachment to its fullest, you're going to get very good results. And I don't think there's anyone can really question it for this detachment.
So we're going to move on to the next attachment. Tell me about it. Which one's this?
So this is the Raven Guard one, the Vanguard Spearhead. This is actually my favorite one.
This
is the one I'm going to be. Yeah, I like this one. This one's got the tricks. This is my one.
Is this it? Isn't this the one where you can like? There's something sneaky about Terminators. You said you could do, and they've got like stealth or something along those lines.
Yeah, no, I've got a couple shenanigans that I can go through with this. This is the one I've looked into the most, so this is the one that I've built lists around and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this.
Let's hear it. Right, tell us. Take us through.
The detachment rule is anytime you get shot over 12 inches with a ranged attack, if you're the unit shooting at you is over 12 inches away, you get -1 to hit and you get benefits of cover. So basically anything over 12 inches, your entire army gets the smoke stratagem against, basically.
Strong.
It's pretty good.
Strong
against really good.
Certain armies out there. I mean, you're basically nullifying Votann because obviously they're
100%.
And Votann have got massive jump. They're really up there at the minute. So strong. So it's good in the current meta so far that we know that's topping. Against Eldari, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. What do you think?
I think against things, I think Eldari can be swingy because they've obviously got the built-in hit reroll to hit reroll to wound with the bright lances, and if they have fate dice if they feel like they need it. I think sometimes it can mess up some of the math with how they think they're going to do, because obviously taking them up to a certain, I think we all know playing a dice game, when you put someone who has like us as a Space Marine player, hitting on 3s is normally a consistent thing. And especially, I know yourself, you play Custodes, hitting on the 2 is, normally quite a standard procedure. Whereas making it then hit on a 4, 4s can be very swingy in a dice game. Much more than any other thing. It never feels, half the time doesn't feel like a 50% chance sometimes when people roll. And especially with, obviously, I know a lot of people have joked about the lack of, people saying of the lack of rerolls that were meant to be in the edition. I think if you honestly take Space Marine Oath out of the equation, you do struggle to find a lot of rerolls in a lot of armies. Like Votann, we mentioned before, their whole thing is making you easier to hit. I say no thank you. And
all of a sudden,
can cause some issues.
Yeah, that becomes, how many times have we seen it where the guy's got like 2 shots from an important gun or important attack, and you roll in 3s, but obviously you're like, oh no, you need 4s now. So that is good. That's so defensively, that's good. So let's move on a little bit more about it. So what are the like? What are these? You kind of hinted at some tricks.
So I think first, if I just there's one enhancement that I need to talk about: the Blade Driven Deep. It gives an infantry.
Beg your pardon. Blade Driven Deep.
Yeah, the Blade Driven Deep is the enhancement name. Yeah, for 25 points, it is one of the reasons why Taser's attachment is crazy.
Please, when you go to like the next tournament, whichever tournament we end up going to together, just stare your opponent in the eye and just tell them.
Yeah.
Whisper that into their ear. I'm gonna
drive my blade deep into you, baby. It's going to be in every single list. I'm going to have to tell every single opponent. They're going to have to understand, because
I'm going to drive deep into you.
100%. They need to know. I'm going to be on their deployment zone turn 1 if I go first, because it gives an infantry model or a unit infiltrate. So I will, in my list, I will be. I've got the new captain chaplain in Terminator armor that came out yesterday.
So he's going to be infiltrating deep.
He's going to be infiltrating with his blade real deep, driven deep, with a 10-man assault Terminator squad, and say, if I go first, I'm charging your deployment zone.
Whoa, that is nice. Now, I think I like the sound of that. Matty's just written in and say he likes the sound of that. Which part, mate?
Yeah.
Let's just clarify which bit, mate.
Yeah, I think with this one, I think the best unit is, I mean, if you're playing a Dark Angels person, if they're the Deathwing Knights are probably the best Terminator unit in the game, having them infiltrate up the board without needing to worry about rapid ingress screening. They're just going to be there. There's not much you can do about it, especially if you win that roll off to deploy first.
I mean, theoretically,
it's going to go there.
You could quite comfortably tie up a couple units there, and
100%.
And they're not going to be an easy unit to shift, but it is an expensive unit to do that with. Like, how many points are we looking at for that combo?
So if you're on about, so for my Terminator one, I believe the chaplain, because the enhancement's 25, so the chaplain's a flat 100, and I believe the Terminator's squad is 390 now, the Thunderhammer one. So that's a 490 point unit.
Wow, 490 points to do that. Mm-hmm. However, potentially, you could tie up double that amount of points. And especially because obviously you've still got to get through your initial combat, so you could do quite a lot of damage. I mean, I don't think you're going to want to charge that into. There's certain armies you're probably not going to want to do that into.
Yeah, I think if you're playing against World Eaters, you're probably not doing that, no.
Yeah, World Eaters and Custodians probably not the best, because the trade-off could be pretty horrific. Also, like with Custodians nowadays, like, they're probably going to keep 50% of their forces will be probably in reserve or deep strike. Other armies, Orcs should probably do quite well with that, because although Orcs put out a lot of damage, they can take some blows. So you could probably cause quite a problem for an Orc player, I imagine, if you got that into in their lines, because their whole stick is about flooding your side of the board. If you all of a sudden are stopping them getting through, that has got a lot of play. So what other tricks? I feel like, Korben, you wouldn't just look at this just for one meaty 500 point trick. What else is there that's piqued your interest?
Yeah, I mean, for the Black Templar Army as well, I just want to mention that the potential for me to just infiltrate with a Judiciar to get fights first, so you can't charge me 20 Crusaders, is really funny as well.
So yeah, this is something I mentioned in the old group chat. The idea of just having like blobs of Crusaders knocking about, because they get reroll charges as well, don't they? Which is
advancing charges,
which is strong.
Yeah, no, they are. They're quite good. They're just putting out, I think, a 10-man unit. I think I worked out they get 35 chainsword attacks, 6 power fist attacks, and some power sword attacks as well, just for an 140 point unit. Do
the TH still have dev wounds? That would be scary into a Marine Terminator army.
Yeah, Thunderhammers have dev wounds, yeah.
So the Thunderhammers still have dev wounds.
Mm-hmm.
So Datsun has now become a Space Marine player. He's putting his Death Guard to bed. So we're going to see them at Peterborough Slam. Dats. Wow. Horrendous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely. I think that's one of the things. I think if you're taking this detachment, you just find. Can I find a unit that can use this enhancement? If you can't, you're probably not using this detachment to the fullest. But as we'll get onto the stratagems now, there's still many more things you can do without needing to use that enhancement.
Right, here's the tricks. Let's hear them.
Here's the tricks. So I think one of them that we can pretty much skip over is one that gives you precision in combat. It's 2 CP. It's a battle tactic if you need it. It will come up if you need it. I think against Necrons, just to snipe out those characters could be really good.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're probably not looking at it too much in a lot of matchups, but in certain scenarios, especially with it being a battle tactic, just needing it can be really useful. And it's probably not one you're going to have someone try and increase the cost of the CP with a Cypher and a Chaos Space Marine list, or a Calidus Assassin if you're playing Imperium, stuff like that. There's some ones, a deadly prize for a CP. Just in your command phase, you just select an infantry or mounted unit, and the objective is stickied. You can then go off and do whatever you need to, and just sticky the objective. For a CP when it needs to come up, I think it's great. Might not use it every game. If you're playing against a melee army, you're probably going to be needing to withhold their melee threat, not sticky objectives and run towards them, stuff like that. But can be very useful. The next three are my favorite. They're so good. So a strike from the shadows is 1 CP, and if I'm more than 12 inches away from you, which obviously leads into my detachment rule, I get +1 ballistic skill and +1 AP shooting that unit with a unit that is also a battle tactic, so you can double up on it as well. So we mentioned before, aggressors, just making them against the closest target, AP2, hitting on 2s with lethal hits rerolls. They then become very good. You get a little nice bonus if you kill a model. You can make them take a battle shock. Obviously, not doing it for that could be nice for them to take a battle shock, especially if you're shooting onto an objective. But yeah, +1 ballistic skill, +1 AP for 1 CP is a really good strat. I think something I've been looking at is a 6-man Inceptor squad. There'd be more tricks in a minute for it, but having plasmas hit on 2s overcharging to AP4, damage 3 is really good, or having just the sustained hits 2 bolter shots hitting on 2s, going up to AP2, damage 2 as well. Wow. 3 shots per guy. That's 18 shots at strength 5 -2 damage. You're hitting, I think it's on average you hit like 22, 24 times or something like that hitting on 2s, because the 6 is a sustained hits 2. So you just hit more than you do. Then not to mention you don't need to oath with this squad because, funnily enough, the aggressors and the inceptors we've already mentioned are auto linked. So you don't need the rerolls anymore for the wound. They'll do them themselves. I think that's crazy. Not to mention inceptors went down, aggressors went back up, but obviously they've increased their weapon skill on their fists as well to line up with the power fist in the Marine Codex as well, which is nice. But I think for 1 CP that stratagem's amazing. The next one, calculated feint, is a stratagem that you can use. I think this is a very much a gotcha stratagem, so probably best to explain to people how this works, and if they are going to plan a turn around something, to let them know you can do this. Because when an opponent declares a charge, and it specifically doesn't state that you can redeclare this charge, so if you then move away so they can't charge you anymore, because you've declared multiple units, they cannot then redeclare the charge to just charge one thing that you've left standing still. You can move D6 inches after a unit declares a charge, or if you're a Phobos or a scout unit, you move a flat 6. So if you have, for example, a Terminator unit sat on an objective, and you've got some Phobos guys in between them, so you have to declare both of them because you'll be in engagement range of both of them.
Oh, so Datsun says the rules commentary state you can.
No, you can. You can redeclare. I really hope you can, because otherwise I was assuming that would be changed, because it would mean that you could make units unchargeable, because if you basically put Phobos units in between them and you move them away, they then can't be charged because they would have to go round because they can't go through your unit unless you've obviously got fly.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
But yeah.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
You know how good his his rules knowledge is very good, so he'll be right on that one.
No, I was also hoping that if that wasn't the case, that they would FAQ or make some sort of designer's note very quickly for this, because you should be able to redeclare the charge.
You haven't memorized the 18-page commentary that went on top of the rulebook?
Absolutely not, no. Yeah, but still, I mean, having infiltrators, obviously you can't charge. This strat alone makes it that you really can't deep strike charge against anything, because even if I roll a 1 on that, you then increase it to a 10-inch charge.
Right, okay.
To do it from deep strike, or if I'm a Phobos or a scout unit, you just can't charge me from deep strike because I'm just going to move 6 away, and then you then can't reach me anymore from deep strike. So yeah, I think this is really good. It's a really good stratagem for 1 CP. Obviously, can vary if it's actually needed or not.
Mm.
If people are trying to line up some, especially I think late game as well, this is probably going to be the most important when people are trying to, line up those charges to try and get some primary denial and those sorts of things. And you just say, no, I'm just going to be there. Their units then just left up in the open because I've got nothing else to charge anymore. And then you just hit them back again because they can't move anymore. It's their charge phase. So then they're just stuck in the open doing nothing, not on any primary, not doing anything. I think the play around this can be really good.
So very tricksy.
100%, and even more tricksy with the next one, which is my favorite stratagem in this.
So
it's probably
this is the final stratagem?
Yeah. So this
Can I
is
tell
guerrilla
us?
tactics. So at the end of your opponent's fight phase, you can select up to 2 Phobos units or scout units from your army, or 1 Adeptus Astartes infantry unit. You then remove that unit and put them into strategic reserve. It does not state you have to bring them down the next turn. You can keep them in reserve if you want to bring them down when you need to. I think this is amazing.
So this is very like the Calidus Assassin, or
Yeah.
the Alaris Terminator and Custodians. Or there's several units in the game, and you'll like Grey Knights, and you'll hear people affectionately call it Uppy Downy.
Uppy down, yeah.
Uppy Downy, and it's amazing in the Warhammer community how like one slang term used one place that then like managed to travel across the entire community, and then it's like a universal new name. It's almost like Objective Secured. Should have been a universal universal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that is very strong. So basically, you pick that unit up,
Yeah.
you put them somewhere else. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that redeploys in this game, especially now, very strong.
Yeah.
Because it allows so much flex on the board, so much utility, and for people out there that don't maybe know what we're talking about when we talk about flex and utility. Utility are just pieces that are able to like play the missions for you, and being able to pick up a unit that are in the wrong side of the board, and then you draw your cards, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I need to be in this space. You've then got the utility because you've already picked up that unit. You can then place them elsewhere, and you're then utilizing what the abilities you have. You're able to play the missions better, and like we said earlier, mobility is key in this edition. Mobility is key.
Yeah, I think it just makes units that potentially, some issues that I come up with my Black Templars currently is, my Terminator unit doesn't really die, doesn't really take lots of damage, but sometimes if played incorrectly or my opponent can play it well, can make them kind of useless to a certain point.
Well,
they might have done what they needed to do, and they only move 5 inches.
Yeah, you're baited to the wrong side of the board, and then you're stuck. Whereas this very much allows you, doesn't it? It's something I do with like the Custodians quite a lot, like with the Alaris, right? Like you deploy your MSU units into your corners to get to use them when you need to, and then you can just pick them up and put them elsewhere on the board to be a nuisance. That's very, very strong. So
yeah, I think the one thing as well that I like these for is Inceptors. Their meteoric descent, which allows them to deep strike within 3 inches or just outside 3 inches, is not once per battle. It's every single time they deep strike. So they can up down 3-inch deep strike every single turn if they want to.
Oh my
if
God,
you can't get rid of them.
The move block capabilities to defend key units. That's what that's good for. You just because they're quite big, so you can string them and just completely move block some vehicles.
Yeah.
Because then they have to, if they can't move through it, they've got to stay where they are, and then they have to either ignore the unit or shoot it dead and deal with it. That's strong. That's very good. I can see why I like this. I like that. So, what are we rating this one? Because is this a solid 8?
I would say this competitively is probably a little bit worse than the Iron Hands one, because it's more tricksy, less just raw damage.
So you need a bit more piloting with this one.
I think the potential for this list is very strong. It's one that I've got a list for. I've built some of the new kits to use for this. I think some of these just having random units like the 85 point new intercessor squad of the deep strike. I can for 1 CP make them basically a Calidus assassin and up down if I need them to score points for me. People aren't really going to want to, there's a lot of times that I can make them, just obscure them and say they'll be useful when I need them, and they move 12 and they do whatever they need to. I think it's really strong. I think this one's probably your Gladius, your Stormlance, Space Wolves, sort of your 7 out of 10 tier.
Yeah, yeah,
Go up if you can pilot it right. But I think just the defensive abilities you have with being able to infiltrate units up, and just the durability you can get in the meta right now with the -1 to hit and cover. I can't pop smoke on my Redemptors in the Vanguard list that I've got in right now. I've got 2 Redemptors because they always get cover and they're always -1 to hit with -1 damage as well. They don't have to feel no pain, but that's even more durable with -1 to hit and cover, just always.
Sounds good. So
Yeah,
we're gonna move on. So this one's a 7.
I think so. Yeah.
Nice. So onto the next one. How many are we through now? We've got what, a couple more left?
This is the last one.
The last one. Okay. So tell us about it. Which one's this?
This is the first company task force, which was the one I was most looking forward to because I love Terminators and Blade Guard. Unfortunately, this is a letdown for me personally. It's
I've
not.
heard.
I don't think it's very good.
Isn't this one a bit of a dud?
Yeah, competitively, I don't think you'll be seeing this. There's annoyingly there's a couple really good stratagems, and I think some enhancements can be well, but the thing that if you were to summarize how this detachment works, it's based around once per battle effects, which is just not what you're looking for in an army build
So
to have once per battle effects.
so tell us what it is. Tell us what it is.
So the detachment rule once per battle gives you Oldos. You get to re-roll wounds as well as hits on a target. That is the detachment rule.
So you get old.
So you get Oldos for 1 turn. Or 1 battle round, should I say.
Is that once per unit, or is that just one time?
Just 1 time once per battle. You choose. You saying, right, in my command phase, when I select this safe target, I'm going to get reroll wounds on this target as well.
Why would you ever pick something that you literally get to use once and never get to use again?
My point exactly. And I think people have been picking this up as well. Is in the enhancements, they're all really average enhancements, and then once per battle, you get like a decent effect. Like Imperium Sword is the one that I'd bring up the most, or Iron Resolve. You get like +1 attack or 5 up for no pain on a character, and he gives that same buff to his unit once per game. Don't get me wrong, that's a really good buff, but once per game, if I'm going to take Iron Resolve, I'll just take Black Templars and give my entire unit a 5 up for no pain the entire game.
This one really is quite poor. Like,
yeah.
Anything that's got like a rule in this game. I mean, I know Votan have it with like getting the free CP for killing something. I mean that has more value than that oath, because just having oath for like one time, it didn't break the game when they had it last time, and they had it every turn, every battle round.
Yeah.
Whereas now only being able to have it once, like it. I feel like that is. Why would you take it when everything else is just so much better?
Yeah.
So I think that ranks below 4. That's like a 3 or a 2.
Yeah, it's a 3 or a 2. They've got a couple nice stratagems. They've got -1 damage in the chart. You have to declare it in the charge phase, which is a little bit weird, but it still works the same way. So yeah, just after your opponent's made a charge, you can select a Terminator, Blade Guard, Vanguard Vet unit, get -1 damage for a CP. It being a battle tactic as well means you can get it a couple times in a turn. Really good stratagem. Unfortunately, just not in a detachment you want to take. And then you've got Orbital Teleportarum, which allows you to do the deep strike stuff you could do in the like similar to guerrilla tactics. This is just for a Terminator unit only though, which is a good rule to be able to up down with some Terminators. But again, it's just not a detachment you want to take for it.
So Datsun said, unless you're running a character with double oath, if you can destroy 2 key units, it could be usable.
Yeah.
Edge case though. Yeah, the thing is though, that's even in the index, you had that,
Yeah.
and you'd still get it every turn because you were able to oath twice.
Yeah.
So they've really nerfed. I mean, we knew they were going to nerf. We knew that was coming, but yeah, Matty's just turned around and said, "Yeah, Gullyman."
Yeah, get them. Yeah.
It, it's it's a bit rubbish.
It's unfortunate. I was looking forward to it. It's the stuff that I love. I love my Black Templar up my melee. I want to shove Terminators and Blade Guard up into people's deployment zones, but then that's the detachment I was hoping I'd be able to do it with. Unfortunately, not.
Well,
I'll have to infiltrate them up instead.
so let's talk about the book as a whole. Obviously,
Hmm.
there's been a lot of new units that have come in. We're not going to go into those. Obviously, you can by all means just go look at them. What's important is the rules that affect them. So, where does this book stand? How do you feel about it? Is this a win? This book is it rather tame? Like in comparison to obviously we know what Tyranids came out. We know that's a very strong book that is
Yeah.
winning tournaments. Is it the same level as Tyranids or is it slightly below Tyranids?
I would say it's either on par. I would say probably on par because I don't think I can. I think just from looking at because I haven't seen any games with it, and obviously how it's doing in tournaments or how it will do in tournaments. Sorry, I think it's going to be from just reading it eat on par with a lot of the Tyranid stuff. I think the thing where we're lucky with compared to the Tyranids is you've got a couple good detachments in the Tyranids. You can probably take all of them apart from two in that book, and you'll probably have some play with it. Um, I think it's definitely a win. I think it was always going to be hard for us to balance when we knew something was going to happen to Oath. I think we all knew it. I think knowing what we were going to get from it, and I think you have so much variety for how you want to run your list. You're going to have something for everything, and I think that's invaluable when creating lists and how people play with Space Marine being such a popular chapter,
Well,
as we all know.
it's the starter into your
Yeah.
Warhammer 40k journey. A lot of people pick it up as the starter, and the fact that a book has came out and it allows people to just kind of take any flavor they like. Really, they're not, you're not tied down in some ways. Like Ninth felt
Hmm.
like you were, although you weren't, you could take whatever the hell you like. Still, it felt like you were tied down. Whereas now they've kind of tried to make it. They've tried to take away those lines that might have been blurred slightly. So if you want to paint them as Iron Hands, but run them as something completely else, that was always fine.
Hmm.
But now it's just made. I think they've they've made it easier to to
Yeah.
to say that, and it's great. It sounds like a decent codex. It's Space Marines. The Space Marines doing what Space Marines do, and I think as far as it goes in the meta and the hobby, I think Games Workshop are taking a good step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So I think the next couple codexes they announced we've got Necrons on the way and we've got Admech on the way.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Admech, I'm not. Just to quickly get into the model. I know we're talking about Space Marines, but those models,
So weird.
I'm not a fan.
No.
Some people out there will love them because they're goofy. But I suppose that's 40k though, isn't it? It's just weird
Yeah.
out there. I mean, the Necron character is a Necron character. It looks very similar to the
Yeah.
other Necron characters. It looks cool. Very nice paint job. So we'll probably be running this back. When they drop that codex, we'll no doubt be having a look at what these latest ones are. Korben, I just want to say thank you for joining us tonight.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And if you've enjoyed the content tonight, guys, please like and subscribe, share. All of the support helps us grow the channel, and we really appreciate it. Just want to say thank you from Black Crow Gaming. Have a good evening, good night. Take it easy.
See you later.
See you later. Bye.